everyone. We'll get started in a few minutes.
Aking sinta, ano bang meron sa'yo? Pag nakikita ka na, bumabagal ang mundo. Ang aking mga mata, huwag kang titingin na sa iba. Akin ka na, wala nang iba. Andito ko hanggang sa ating pagtanda, mamahalin kita basta't pagdahulog. Nakahawak ako, huwag ka lang bibitaw. Habang buhay na ako'y ikaw, ang aking mga mata, huwag kang bakit ba kasi nagfi-feeling ka na naman? Ano ba ang nasa isip? Malino na ayoko na sa'yo, wala ka na sa aking piling. Iniisip ng iba, mahal pa rin kita. Akala nila gusto pa rin kita, pero di mo lang alam na nasanay na sila. Naaalala mo lahat dinanas ko nang tayo pa. Alam mo namang gustong gusto pa kita, pero pinili mong pumunta sa iba. Ngayon dito ka nagmamakaaba. Sorry pero di ko na
All right, thank you everyone for joining. So we will get started. Just a second. All right, so welcome everyone to this information session for the 2024 Phil Pro Immersion Program. My name is Christopher Lepinig. This is my third year serving as the selection committee chair for Phil Pro. I'm really excited to talk about our immersion program and hopefully get to meet some of the future members, future delegates of Batch 11, Batch 2024. Yeah, let's get started. So for those of you who are not familiar with PhilPro, we are, as you can see here, a network of high-performing next-generation leaders who advance the Philippines and the Filipino people through advocacy and expertise in various industries. And we continually expand the pipeline of Filipino young leaders in the diaspora. By connecting them to the motherland, we foster collaborative multinational relationships that create innovations and support the socioeconomic progress of the global Filipino community. And to give you some sense of the history of PhilPro, we are an organization that was originally started by former ambassador to the United States from the Philippines, Jose Quisha. He was ambassador to the United States under the Noynoy administration. And so we have been in existence for some time now. I wish I could tell you off the top of my head what year we were founded, but it's been more than 10 years now. And so, yeah, our flagship program is the Immersion program, where we have brought a delegation of Filipino Americans to the Philippines for a week-long immersion program, a really intensive program, connecting the delegates with leaders and other change makers in different industries in the Philippines. Yeah. So this is our president for 2024, JP Ferrer. And we also have a number of directors on our board. Most of them are alumni of the Immersion program. And so you can see them here. So just to give you a sense as to the other aspects of PhilPro, besides the Immersion program, during the COVID-19 pandemic, we launched Tayo, which is a virtual help desk service that helps connect Filipinos and Filipino Americans to vital services. And so that has been a strong ongoing initiative of the PhilPro organization. We also prioritize mentorship and do a number of mentorship initiatives to help build leadership and capacity among Filipinos and Filipino Americans. So hopefully you can all see this video, but this is just one slice of the videos that we captured for last year's batch 10, which went to the Philippines in August of last year. So let me share this video. Let me make sure the sound is.
Welcome to Hinablon sa Cebu Social Enterprise of Cebu Technological University. So this is where you will see a dying handloom weaving industry of the Cebu province revived by a university. This is where you will see hand-woven products, hand-woven and handcrafted from the heart.
We had an incredible experience meeting with the weavers of Hinablon sa Cebu earlier this morning, and it was really wonderful to learn about the weaving process from beginning to end. We walked around the workshop and were shown all of these incredible weaving looms that were so large in scale, and the process is so intricate, from like how you get the threads onto the looms, onto the finished product, such as these beautiful fabrics that you see here. So I learned to really appreciate the effort that these mainly female weavers would put their heart and soul into these products, and it made me really proud to be Filipino, witnessing their process of weaving their heritage and their stories into these fabrics.
And also just to hear the stories of how these weavers are struggling to really keep up this tradition of weaving alive, and how to really bring it into the modern day Philippines.
So now, at our final stop, we're actually here at Anthill, and so we're learning about more of the different types of fabrics, the type of weavers across the Philippines.
So after we got a tour of the weaving workshop, we were so blessed to have a lechon boodle fight where all of us got to gather around and have Cebu lechon. It was my first time to try it, and it was so fun. So we got to eat with the weavers and just kind of gather and eat with each other and eat the lechon with our hands, and it was a really incredible and fun experience and super sarap.
The fabric that bonds us together unites us so strongly, and as someone who feels disconnected with my roots, that connective tissue that I am currently searching for was something that spoke to me today, and I think I'm going to continue to learn from that experience. And you know, for those who feel away from their Filipino identity, how can I continue to spread the message that the weavers in Argao had shown me today?
Right. So yeah, I should note that batch 10 was the first batch that we actually brought outside of Metro Manila and outside of Luzon. Before all the other batches beforehand, up until batch 9, um, did the entire immersion program in Metro Manila, and with maybe a trip or two outside of Metro Manila, but somewhere else in Luzon. But batch 10, we actually started in Cebu City, but also, as you see there, we spent our first day of the immersion program in another part of Cebu province. And we are hoping to continue that tradition or that practice. We are finalizing, the majority of the program will be held in Metro Manila, but we are anticipating that we'll be spending some portion of the immersion program elsewhere in the Philippines, and we're finalizing a location right now. So just some basics about the immersion program. This year, we are planning to have the immersion program the week of November 9. So November 9 is when the immersion program starts, and it'll be 7 days. The deadline to apply is the end of this month, May 31st. The age range is 25 to 45. So you need to be at least 25 as of November 9, 2024, and no older than 45 as of November 9, 2024. I should note that we actually increased the age range. So batch 9 was the first batch to happen after the pandemic. We took, because of the pandemic, we did not do the immersion program for, I believe, about 2 years. And given that before batch 9, the age range was actually 25 to 40. And we decided to increase the age range permanently. We were, because there were folks that definitely would have aged out because of the pandemic and the fact that we didn't do the immersion program during that period. And so we just ended up increasing the age range permanently to 45. There is a small $20 application processing fee that you'll see as part of the application. And to apply, you go to the URL that's shown on the screen. It's philpro.awardspring.com. So the way that the immersion program is organized is that basically each day has a different theme. And so, you can take a look at the alumni that are listed on our website. Unfortunately, I don't think we have all of the most recent batches on the website at the moment. But generally, there's been a trend. The last batch had 15 people, and they all represented different industries, different backgrounds, came from all over the United States, from Hawaii all the way to the East Coast. And they represented industries like healthcare, the arts, business, education, politics, the law, and that's a general trend with the Philpro delegation, is that we try our best to have a diverse group of people that represent different facets of the Filipino American experience and Filipino American community. And so likewise, our immersion program also is built around different lenses and different industries. So you can see here, we generally have days that are devoted to arts, business, government, a community day. And so that video that you just watched was our community day for batch 10 at the Weaving community organization. And there's also peppered throughout the immersion program mentorship opportunities. We try our best to pair every delegate with a mentor that is appropriate for their background and their interests, as well as the legacy project that every delegate has committed to undertaking. And then there's an opening ceremony and a closing ceremony as well. So here's a sample itinerary for a day. So this, you don't have to, we're not going to walk through every single part of this sample itinerary or the sample schedule, but you can see that it's a pretty intensive program. And so, it's 7 days of, a lot where you are busy from early in the morning until often the evening. And so it's a lot, and, it can be tiring, but I think most delegates, and we have alumni here that will speak to their experience. It's it's a lot to take in, but also I think it's well worth it, and we try our best to give opportunity and time for the delegates to get to know each other and to really bond. And I think especially the folks from Batch 10 can testify to those lasting relationships. So a couple of tips, get started on the application if you haven't already. We do require 2 recommendation letters as part of the application. And you'll see that as part of the Award Spring platform, that there is a part of the form that asks you to input the contact information for your recommendation writers. And so they will be sent an email with all of the information as to how to submit their recommendations. We also highly encourage you to showcase your involvement in the Filipino and Filipino American communities. The last thing is to not get discouraged if you are not accepted this time around. Many of our alumni, many of the folks that ended up being selected for a delegation had to apply several times. And I can tell you that at least one person that I know I've applied, I think 4 times, but eventually got in and was part of the program. And so, this year, it's a competitive process, and we always try our best to sort of assemble, a diverse delegation. And so maybe this year might not be the year that you're selected, but maybe next year or the year after might be that year. So please don't get discouraged. And in addition, there's also other ways to get involved in PhilPro outside of the immersion program that we highly recommend. So we'll talk about alumni experiences, but let me just briefly sort of mention that you can become a PhilPro member even without having done the immersion program. And so you can go to this link, philpro.org/membership, and become a member. And you can get involved in things like Tayo, our other initiatives. You can get involved in the organization. We have at least 1 or 2 people that are on the board of directors that did not actually do the immersion program. And so there are real ways to get involved in PhilPro as an organization before you've done the immersion program. All right, so I know we have Jan here. Is Josh here as well? Okay. So I'm going to turn it over to one of our batch 10 delegates, Jan, and I think we're also supposed to have one more. Oh, here he is. All right. So we have Jan and Josh, Josh Ong Price, Jan Tensinko. And so we'll start off with Jan, and she's just a member of the last batch, and she can tell you more about herself and what her experience was like during the program.
Thanks, Chris. Hi, I'm Jan. Can you hear me okay? I'm gonna assume that's a yes. I'm Jan.
Yeah, we can hear.
Cool. Yeah, I was part of the last batch. I'm based in New York, and I work within the media, culture, and technology space. When I applied to PhilPro, I honestly didn't really know what it was. I had been part of their newsletter for a while, But I was feeling like I really wanted to step outside of my comfort zone and make new friends and immerse myself in my culture. Like I had just moved to New York and I didn't really have like a Filipino community at the time. And check. Like through this program, I built a lot of good friends. I hang out with Athena, actually, who was part of my program all the time. And the the week itself was quite transformational. When you showed that video, Chris, I went to go grab my my shawl or whatever you call it because I got this from the Hina Blonde and I actually wear it all the time. It's not as cold as like I don't really need to wear it, but I just wanted to show it off to this group. Um, I found that the Cebu portion of the trip was really special to me because that is where my dad grew up, and I hadn't really explored that area. This video also didn't really show um, the cultural tour that we had a few days before, which was focused on Magellan and really highlighted the impact that colonialism had on the Philippines. It made me like quite emotional. Um, yeah, is there anything else that you want me to talk to specifically? I think like it is a great it's a great trip. It is also very exhausting, is something to keep in mind. Like I think like I only had like a few hours of sleep at night, but it's really worth it. I met a lot of people. I learned a lot. I don't eat meat and I still ate a lot. Like they are just like constantly feeding you. um, um, yeah. Yeah, and I'm happy to like answer any specific questions if anyone has any.
Yeah, thank you, Jan. Yeah, no, I think that's great. And if folks have additional questions and if you can stick around, that'd be awesome. But maybe we can hear from Josh, since he just joined us, and he can talk about his experience and his during the program as well as after the program as well.
Sure. Hey everyone. Mabuhay. Sorry that I'm not on camera. I'm actually driving, so just for safety purposes, I'm going to stay off camera. But my name is Joshua Ong Price. I currently reside in Little Rock, Arkansas. I grew up in the state of Arkansas. Um, One thing that I like about Jan's story and what I liked when on one of the days we always talk about our Philam experiences. So I was batch number 7. I went through the program in 2018. Um, I actually lived in the Philippines for like 18 months as a kid. And I think it's so interesting that when you meet some of the other fellows, like some of them are from the Philippines, maybe some lived there as a kid, maybe some were born and raised in the US, some like went back all the time. I hadn't been to the Philippines in 21 years, hadn't visited home. And my family is from Iloilo, which is actually where the immersion is going to be going this year. So I'm very excited about that. But to be back in the Philippines, just shy of 40 years old as an adult, and I hadn't been there since I was like in my late teens. It was so eye-opening because we always went and visited my family in Iloilo. We never went to Manila or just passed through Manila just to get on the plane to go to Iloilo. So to be able to go with peers, with like-minded individuals, with folks I would consider colleagues that were also young professionals, and be able to see Manila was really life-changing. Just the demographics of Arkansas, there's not a lot of AA and HPI. I think they're like 2%. So, I work in government, so I don't really see a lot of AA and HPI, especially not Filipinos. So to be able to be on a trip, not only with my fellow alum, but also to be able to see how business works in the Philippines, how government works, and meet top elected officials, top business leaders, community leaders. It was just very, very eye-opening to see a system that was running, fairly well. That was very different from the U.S. and the systems we have here. So for me, it was very transformative because that experience it gave me a lot of confidence. To be honest, it really changed my career path. So I had I'm not going to get political, but I had folks from my party. I'm a Democrat, wanting me to run for office and things like that in the U.S. And I was kind of like, I don't know. I just really didn't have the confidence to put myself out there. But after going on the PhilPro immersion trip, it gave me that confidence because it's like I saw where I came from, and it just being able to reconnect with the motherland, reconnect with my ancestors, made me feel so confident that I could come back and, kind of challenge the system here in the United States and in Arkansas and make sure that we had representation. So I ended up not winning my race, but it still gave me that confidence to get out there and run in the first place and put myself out there. And then I stayed involved afterwards. I joined the board. I was president in 2020 when the pandemic hit, and we were able to pivot and do some other types of things since we couldn't have the immersion trip because of COVID. And that's when we ended up launching our COVID-19 task force, which is now TAIO. So for those of you who are familiar with TAIO Help Desk and the work they do for PhilPro and for our communities battling misinformation, that all kind of came to being at that time. So I've stayed involved. I've gone on every immersion trip since, just to be kind of like an alumni chaperone. And I'm actually going back to the Philippines here in like 2 weeks for my cousin's wedding. And my goal is to actually move back to the Philippines at some point. I was hoping it'd be sooner rather than later, but my mother has some health issues, so trying to resolve those before I get too far away from home. But again, it's just such an amazing experience, so life-changing. And as Jose Rizal says, no self, no self. So NO self and then KNO self. So if we don't know where we came from, how do we know where we're going, right? So I would encourage you all to please apply. I know not everyone can get in, but it really was a life-changing experience for me, as it was for Jan. And if you don't get in the first time, try again. I actually applied in 2017 and didn't get in, so it was my second time applying before I got in. And I wouldn't trade the experience for anything in the world. It's really, I would say, one of the most, if not the most impactful experience I've ever had in my life.
Yeah, I would agree. I like developed a family overnight. It's quite wonderful. Josh, did you say that you're chaperoning this year?
Yeah, I plan on being. I mean, it's going to be in my hometown of Iloilo, so
Hell
I
yeah.
have to
No,
show up.
I just wanted to plug you as a fun chaperone. So
Yeah,
I'm
you
the
should.
Yeah,
So
I'm the karaoke tito, apparently.
yeah, you guys, those of you that do end up in batch 11, you'll get treated to Josh's amazing rendition of "Too Close" by Next. Um, I feel forever cursed because whenever I hear that song, I can only think of Josh now. So yeah.
True.
Um, and then Jan also brought out her shawl, and I should say that this batch 10 did a lot of shopping. I also was a chaperone for batch 10. We did so much shopping, and so like, just be warned. You don't have to do shopping, but like this batch was just like ravenous when it came to like clothes and stuff like that. So there's that. Yeah, and so we'll open it up to questions. I should just say briefly though, because I'm an alum too. I was batch 5. I did it in 2016. I actually had a different experience just because I lived in the Philippines for about 9 months before I went to law school. So I was a Fulbright scholar from 2009 to 2010. Did PhilPro in 2016. And so the program itself was great and amazing. But I think for me, the real life-changing part, as Jan and Josh um, alluded to, was after the program and just sort of having this network and family of alumni all over the United States that you can, get to know over time and meet if you're traveling to different cities. And I think that's been the most gratifying part of doing PhilPro and being a PhilPro alum. Um, so yeah. Let's see. So I guess we have questions here. So the first question, maybe Josh, since you mentioned applying multiple times, can address this. How can we improve our application from the previous year to have a better chance of being accepted this year?
Yeah, sure, I'll field that one. And I was also on the selection committee the last couple of years, so I could definitely provide some insight. I would say be yourself, be honest, be candid. We already have your resume and all that information, so we don't need another resume on the application. We want to see you and who you are and what you're about. So don't be afraid to dig in deep. Don't be afraid to let some walls down. Don't be afraid to talk about um, things that may be painful for you or things from your childhood that are influencing why you want to go to the Philippines. I think, when you're getting a stack of applications where everybody is so successful, when you see the ones that are very open and honest and candid about their reasons for wanting to go back to the Philippines, or what they think they can get out of this immersion trip. Those are the ones that really stand out. I would also say for your legacy project question, I know that those things change and may adapt over time, but the strong applications I saw had, goals. It could be bullet points. This is what I hope to accomplish. A basic timeline. So it's one thing to have an idea, but maybe flesh it out a little bit more, where you have a little bit more of a plan for implementation and potential outcomes. That to me also stands out when I read applications. And then finally, I would say that if you still don't get in, it may have nothing, and you did all those things I just mentioned, it may have nothing to do with you, because we're looking holistically at the whole batch over applications from the whole country, and we want to make sure that we have representation by gender, by industry, by region or location. So it could be just a luck of a draw that there were a lot of applicants from New York, and you're also in New York, and it was stiff competition for you because we could only have a couple people from New York. So I would say just apply again. For example, when I applied the first time, Arkansas used to be part of the Chicago consular region. So I was going up against, folks that were from Chicago, a lot of successful philanthropists in Chicago, which made it more competitive. So it may just be something like that, where your application is great, but it just doesn't mesh with the other applicants insofar as us meeting our goals for the batch. And those requirements that we're looking for as far as demographics and diversity. So I would say, again, just be really open and honest on your application. Have some type of a plan and timeline and desired outcome for your legacy project. And one other thing I want to mention with the legacy project, like, you don't have to say, hey, I'm going to go in and solve infrastructure in the Philippines or something like that. Like, it doesn't have to be like this magic bullet that's going to save the world. It can be something small. It could be a project that, in one village, or that affects just X amount of people. Like, it doesn't have to be this massive project. It just needs to be something that's executable and realistic. And then finally, apply again if you don't get in.
Thank you, Josh. So we also have a question: what other factors do we look at in the application? So, at a high level, we look at your background and your experience, and we also look at your involvement in the community. We look at the thoughtfulness of your essay responses, as well as as Josh alluded to, the thoughtfulness of your legacy project ideas. We definitely look at your letters of recommendation, and we also consider, from the basis of your application as a whole, your potential for leadership and your potential for contribution to PhilPro as an organization after the immersion program. And then we also take into account just, diversity in terms of just, what industry do you represent, what part of the country do you represent, all those sorts of things. Just, as Josh alluded to, to sort of assemble the most diverse and robust delegation that we can. So that's a question. Jan or Josh, do you have anything else to add on that front?
No, I think you covered it, Chris.
All right, cool. Yeah, and so legacy projects, we, as Josh mentioned, you definitely can be flexible with your legacy project. So you can propose something in your application, and you might end up going to the Philippines as part of the immersion program and then leave with a completely different idea. And that has happened a lot in the past, and that's fine. In terms of support, you'll have access to your mentors as well as to the alumni network to help you implement your legacy project. Yeah, I think those are the main things. How can we submit additional letters of recommendation? So you'll see in the application platform in AwardSpring that there is a question at the end that allows you to upload any additional supporting documents. And so that can be additional letters of recommendation apart from the two that we require. All right, sorry, I'm flying through these questions. So I was advised that PhilPro selects one candidate from each specific region. How can we improve our application in order to stand out if there are multiple applicants? So I will say that, one thing that is different about PhilPro now is that we still work closely with the embassy and with the Philippine Department of Foreign Affairs, but PhilPro is now an independent nonprofit organization that stands by itself. And so so PhilPro, we actually run the selection process entirely on our own. We do advise the embassy as to who we're thinking of selecting, but unlike in the past, where the embassy had the final say on who gets selected as part of the delegation, we just share that information on an FYI basis, really. And so, whereas in the past, the embassy required that there be at least, uh, they basically made sure that there was at least one delegate from every consular region. We are not beholden to that rule anymore. That said, we still aspire to have at least one delegate from every consular region. But we also acknowledge that there are differences in the sizes of the consular regions, and the number of Filipinos that are in every consular region. And so the consular regions that we consider, let me see if I can name them off the top of my head. So New York, DC, um, Houston, Chicago, San Francisco, Los Angeles, and Hawaii and Guam are considered together. So you can actually, those different cities, those consulates cover different states throughout the country. So you can go to those individual consulate websites to figure out what consular region you are a part of. But yeah, I think batch 10 actually had a lot of people from the LA and San Francisco consulate regions. That's not to say that everyone was from LA or San Francisco or even the Bay Area. But so, for example, we had a delegate that was technically part of the LA consulate region, but he lives in Phoenix. And he's our first Phoenix delegate ever. We also had someone from Las Vegas, and I think he's the first Vegas delegate ever. And both of those cities are part of the LA region. So, yes. Okay, I have a follow-up question about the consulate regions based on your residence or employment. Um, that's an interesting question. I mean, I think it's generally based on where you live. That's how we've treated it in the past. So yeah. Okay. Is there multiple virtual interviews post online app submission? I believe we just do one round of interviews after the application. And yeah, maybe Josh can answer this. For the legacy project, does PhilPro provide any monetary resources to help execute your legacy project? Josh, do you want to
Yeah,
answer that?
absolutely. So, and Chris, jump in if you'd like. But
Sure.
to my knowledge, no. I know we had discussed doing it in the past, but as far as PhilPro providing financial resources, no. Now, that being said, PhilPro does have an extensive network of alum that would be happy to assist you with your legacy project, whether that's making their own donation or connecting you to other donors. I've had folks who reached out for me for donations for their legacy project or fellow alum, or wanted me to help them, connect them with potential donors. So I think it's more going to be the expertise, the networking, the technical assistance, is what PhilPro can assist with. That being said, it's not impossible that they could provide you with some financial resources. But if you are asking if PhilPro is like, hey, here's $1,000, go do your legacy project, that we don't do that.
Yep, I think that's right.
I think we would love to if we get the budget for it, but as of right now, we do not.
Yeah. Yeah, PhilPro itself at this point does not have the resources to do anything like that. But we, as Josh said, we do have, as a delegate, you'll be connected to alumni, but also like a wide network of business leaders and philanthropic organizations that could potentially provide funding for your legacy project. Okay, I have a specific question about Boston. Honestly, the application period ends in May, or May 31st, as we mentioned. And so if your address for the month of May is in Boston, then you will probably be considered as part of the New York region. Yeah. All right. So any other questions? And again, you can email immersion@philpro.org if you have any further questions along the way. This information session is also recorded, and so I will be sending out the link to this recording to everyone that registered on the Google form. But unless there are any other questions, thank you all so much for joining. Thank you, Jan and Josh, for joining us, and good luck to everyone.
Thank
Take care,
you.
everyone. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.